Welcome to another demo day, everybody. It's good to see you here. Thanks for joining. Today, I'd like to introduce you all to Hubert Dulay, who is the head of DevRel at Decodable. And you're going to see a lot of Hubert on these demos going forward. But I'm delighted to introduce him and hand over to him, where he's going to give us not a tour of the supermarket, but a tour of data products, Async API, and how Decodable kind of fits into that whole picture. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Hubert, to take it away.
Thank you, John. Thanks for everybody for coming. As you can see from my background, I'm at the grocery store, and that's for a reason, right? I'd like to talk about data products to you today, with the idea of how to publish them through Async API. Well, basically what data products are like, if I'm going to just compare it to what, the produce that you buy from the grocery store. I would, when I shop for those products, I want them to be, clean and maybe possibly wrapped. I can look at the label and see where they came from, what's in it. And if not only that, I would like to know that it's maybe organic, even, like I know where it came from. I know the source that it may have come from, or how secured it is because of its wrappings and so on. I trust that data, that those products from the grocery store, because of all of those things put together, right? And a lot of those labels and wrappings and evidence of quality and assurance and security. To me, it builds a lot of trust. So I know that I'm using the right, or I'm consuming, in that case, the produce. It's safe, and I can serve it to others, to my kids, and so on. So the idea of data products is exactly really the same thing. But in order to achieve that kind of level of trust and security, you really need to find out, how can I get that sort of metadata to my consumers, right? And that's a hard thing to do. A lot of data governance tools out there help you with that. But when it comes to streaming, but those are typically pointing at like data at rest, things that are in like a data lake or a data warehouse. But when you start to think about like data products that are moving, streaming data products, there's not a whole lot of things out there that you could use. But one of which I've run into in the past year is the Async API, which I think is a really neat way of like describing your data as streaming products, right? And still be able to provide the metadata that's required in order for consumers of that data to have a lot of trust, right? So yeah, let's get to it. Let me share my screen. This is Decodable. This is my account, and I'll go drill into there, and you'll see that there's these objects at the top, connections, streams, and pipelines. A lot of you are already familiar with this, but for those who aren't, these are basically ways to integrate into Decodable, pipelines are things to transform your data and to enrich it. And this is where we're going to focus today, are the streams, or the data that's being generated from either pipelines or from straight from connections, right? These typically could be considered data products, right? What I would recommend is that maybe add a namespace or a prefix to it, so you can identify them as final products. They've been enriched somehow, or maybe the different stages of enrichment. Lots of people like to use the bronze, silver, and gold analogy of labeling their data. However you would like to prefix your data or identify your data as being ready for production, I recommend that. But this is the data that you would maybe be able to share amongst your consumers. If you saw the blog that was posted recently, I think it was yesterday, this demo here corresponds to that blog, and with that blog came this this GitHub repository. And this GitHub repository is really just a landing place for lots of our examples. And we'll continue to add more examples here as we move forward. But the first one is Async API. And you can just follow these instructions. It does use some command line things. But if you're trying to build, say, like a data portal or your own kind of data governance tool, you may want to use to check out our REST APIs that will do the same thing. Right now, I'm just utilizing the command line. But if you just go to Decodable, you could go to our docs and API references. I'll be doing all of these, but the the command line CLI is going to be calling these REST APIs for me, and that's how I wrote this this demo. Basically, what it's doing, you'll need a way to kind of display and query JSON. And this right here is the Async API generator. It's called AG. The command line tool is called AG. It's this npm install will go out to GitHub and download it onto your local computer. So like I said, you'll need jQuery or JQ, a command line tool for parsing and querying JSON. You'll need the AG tool from Async API. Basically, what it is a way to read the Async API YAML document, and then it'll give you ways to generate different things. You can generate say Spring Boot code. You could generate like other code in different other languages. You can even generate HTML, which we'll demonstrate here, and we'll also I'm going to use it as well. I'm going to extend Async API so that I could build integration points with the data products that I have defined in Decodable. I'm using Jinja, Python tool for templating, just so I can parse the JSON and use the contents of that JSON to go into the Async API YAML, and just to build other self-service tools to generate my integration points into Decodable. This is optional, but it's always useful as a way to query YAML documents, just like this jQuery up here allows you to query JSON. This will query YAML for you. All right, so I'm just going to start running into these, start iterating through these commands. So I just put little simple commands here. You could feel free to visit the GitHub repository and see the commands themselves, right? So they're in order. So I'll just do that. All I did was just log in to Decodable so I can execute the subsequent commands downstream here. So I've logged in. So now I'm going to make my Async API. This command is kind of a bit complicated, but when you walk through it, it's pretty simple. I'm just listing all the streams that I have in Decodable. These are my data products. I'm selecting, outputting as JSON. So I'm using a JSON query here just to select things, streams that start with the term data products, so I know which ones are data products. And then just different techniques here to grab the contents specifically that I want, and it's writing to a file called db JSON, and this is the contents of that file. This last line here uses a template, Jinja, to take that JSON input and output a YAML document, this document here, using this template. So all this is doing is really taking the contents from Decodable, the metadata, really the schema, name, schema ID, the name of it, and so on, and just building a YAML document. Let me show you that YAML document. It's not very intuitive just yet. YAML could be a bit verbose. But here is that document. Notice the this is a to shrink this. So I guess let me walk you through the YAML document. External docs. So this is your Async API YAML. This is what we're using to define our streaming data product in Decodable. This is just information that you could put in here for about your data product if you have like an external site to provide that. There's additional information, license, versioning. This could coincide with a schema that you define for the wire, the data that's actually flowing through the pipelines and the connections in Decodable. Licenses and contacts. The tags here are a way to just provide more information on your data product. These could be external links to, say, like a lineage generation page or to the data product itself or the stream itself. It could link to other data products. So let's say I have some fact data that I was enriching with some other data product from another line of business or domain or business unit. I'm using that data to enrich it. I could link that information here so that the person that's shopping for this data product has the full lineage and view of how this data was put together, how was it enriched, where the enrichment data came from, and so on, right? So there's definitely a bunch of information here to really build like a quote unquote knowledge graph that you could actually provide to your data catalog. Servers, so we're not using a streaming platform here. We're just using Decodable, so this doesn't really need a whole lot of information. But I am overriding the typical servers that this would understand, like RabbitMQ or Kafka or whatever streaming platform you're using. So since we're not connecting to Decodable per se, what we're going to do is pull that data or have Decodable push that data using an S3 connection into S3. Here's channels. Well, channels are really the data products themselves. Okay, so this tag, this property here, data products envoy events, actually corresponds to, if I go to Decodable, it corresponds to this stream here. So I'll keep this up. Notice that there's is being fed through this inbound pipeline, and it has no outputs. Nobody's consuming this data product yet. It's just out there to be consumed, right? So when like data engineers think of ETL, you think of the entire pipeline, the source all the way to the sink. But when you think about data products, you only really need to think about the source all the way to the data product, and then you give the self-service tools to the people that want to be able to to consume your data, so that they can just build those integration points without having to write code, right? Usually Async API, you could have it build the code for you, but then in this case, we're trying to reduce the amount of code. So we want to be low code and low configuration, right? You just want these tools to just work for you and build that integration point so that you don't have, where to put it, you know where you want it. And so we take an assumption to all that information. But so this is just information on that stream in Decodable. This is some security information. It's just username and password is the connection here. The description, this was all generated from the metadata that was pulled from Decodable. When it was created, when it was updated, and the stream ID. That stream ID will be important later for building my S3 connection from Decodable to S3. Additional information of how to subscribe, more tags, in traits. And I'll get to these traits. These are actually consumed by the AG tool, which I'll run in a second here. In fact, I'll do that now so that I can kind of like segue better into the components down here. So if you recall, the next step here was just to build my HTML. So I created my YAML document. I didn't really have to do anything. This is just some parsing code that I generated to translate JSON to YAML. Now I have my Async API YAML. I'm going to use that YAML to build an HTML page. So this is the command AG. This is the file, the YAML Async API YAML file that I generated. This is again going out to GitHub and pulling this this repository and using that tool to generate HTML. This is a directory it's going to, and this is just me telling the tool to just overwrite whatever I have in there. So let's do that now. So since this tool takes a couple of seconds to run because it is going out to the internet, to GitHub and pulling this and cloning it and doing all that work internally in memory to build that to build the output. So this is the output. So if I just open it, this is the page that it generates. I only have one data product. You could absolutely generate a data, an endpoint or data product for every stream that you have in Decodable. That's up to you. I recommend namespacing, as I said before, so that you can kind of identify the level of cleanliness and so on to get an idea of what types of data products you would like to serve. But this is all clickable. It's very similar to like an open API document, right? If I were to parse the same like an open API document, it would look sort of the same. I can go to the left here, click on the API that I would like to consume. Notice it's a subscribe. This Async API has the option to display, produce sections here as well. So notice here's the payload. This actually is the schema that was pulled out of Decodable. It's very, I could just navigate to a page like this, start, search for it and click and straight to my Envoy events and see what that data looks like, to see if that's the information that I want to use in my own application. Right in here, there's information that I could use as a group and client ID, but more importantly, it's a stream ID. This stream ID is what I'll use in my next command to pull from the YAML document and build myself an S3 connection to this data product. More information here on the payload. This is just redundant information. If you like your view and not like a payload like this, but this more descriptive table like views as well as the schemas. So the next command was to generate my S3. So all this is going to do is use Jinja. This one's going to read the Async API document. So this is the Async API. This is me telling that it's going to be YAML that I'm sending to Jinja. And the output is going to be just a shell script that runs the command. And this is the Jinja template that it's using to translate the contents of the Async API YAML into a command that could be ran on the command line. So let's do that now. So if we just view that, this is the information it generated. I do have some credentials here in my source environment. So if you follow the instructions on the GitHub repository, you'll see some of the configurations that you'll need, which includes like the bucket you want to put this information in. You could also override the directory you would like to go to, the format. the region, and the security ARN. But all this is the stream ID I was alluding to in the YAML document. I'm able to generate this command by querying the YAML document and putting that in this command. And so I can just run this command now. So this is going out to Decodable and running and creating me a connection to this data product. So here's that. So let's click it. Notice there's a inbound stream. That's this stream. This is data products envoy events. So this is our inline lineage clicks here. So notice that this is coming from a pipeline called Hubert Data Product, and it's being consumed by a connection called Data Product Envoy Events, and that's the thing that we just created down here. And notice it's connected to S3. All we need to do is just start it, and it'll start writing to S3. And just show you, this is the S3 bucket of all the JSON events coming in. There's a lot of them. It's been going on for quite a long time. So let's look at the repository for a second. Let's move here. So really, all we've done here is just use the Decodable CLI to look at and query the data products that we want. This is just selecting for data products that streams that start with the word data product, and using Jinja as a way to create commands to run on the command line. Likewise, I'm generating HTML so I could show my data consumers all the metadata that goes along with this this data product, and then a way to just automatically generate a way to consume that data into my my space. Okay. Over here, so if you intend to build something similar to this, and it's a tool, I would highly recommend using the API, the REST API endpoints instead of the command line. It gives you a better experience. Obviously, everything is REST. You don't need to go down on the command line. What I've done here is really more applicable for like CI/CD pipelines, or like in Jenkins or whatnot. Any questions so far? This is a very simple concept. You don't have to build ETL pipelines from soup to nuts to source to sink. You can just define really trustable, secure data products and showcase them to your consumers, and let them decide whether they want to consume it or not. And if they do, have tools ready for them to just consume into their own space. That's really it for me. If you have any questions, definitely ask them now, or if later, hit me up on the Decodable community Slack. I'll be there all the time to answer your questions.
Hey, Hubert. Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
So could you show the stream that you pre-created, like the data product stream that you created that you're then referencing from that makefile?
Yeah. Let me go back to my desktop. So this is the stream.
Got it.
Yeah. So the thing that's generating the stream is this pipeline here. You'll see the SQL here. It's pulling some data from Envoy raw. It's just some Envoy logs that's being generated through some of our data gen connections. I'm only grabbing a few fields here and a timestamp, right? So this is where you you start building your data products, right? You could enrich it. You could standardize your data if you need to format it in such a way, such as this timestamp here. You enforce all of your data standards, data governance standards, and so on, right? And then if you need multiple products that derive from the same source, you can just create another one of these and have it be, let's say for instance, for some reason they can't have the path, you can omit it from the path. So now if that's part of your data governance, you don't want people, some groups of your domain not to have that information. So you could omit it, provide only those data products to those users, right? Yeah, there's a whole process here. What I've done before in the past is, let me go back to that page here. I think it was over here. Let me just open it up again. So what you can do, you can actually go, this is that Async API HTML template that I use to generate the HTML document. You could definitely override this. You could go to the, this is the template itself. It's just one really simple HTML page. But everything else here is like, everything is in this JSON script. It's minimized. So it's really, GitHub actually deminimizes it for you so you can read it. But this one's a bit harder to extend, but there are ways to add buttons and so what I'm getting at is that you could build a workflow in this view, right? A workflow. So you could add, say, if I go to this link here, you could add buttons here that says, oh, maybe I could click that button and request access to that data product. That could go as like an event to your like data product owner or product manager to see if you yourself are allowed to have access to that data. He or she might be able to give you an alternate data product to consume if you're not allowed. But basically, you could build in a workflow here to go through your data governance cycle or like workflow for accessibility to your data. You can also add another button here that automatically consumes it to S3. Like I said, everything is through REST APIs. The CLI that I was using is calling those same REST APIs. You can absolutely build a data portal that does everything for you without having to actually write any code.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. Any other questions? Again, I'm always on the Decodable community Slack. Hit me up there if you have any further questions.